This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
How would you like to get more customers, make more profits, and have bigger breakthroughs? Get Doberman Dan's profit-boosting breakthroughs. Normally, this would cost you $98 per month, but right now, for listening to this show, he's giving you a free copy of his Doberman Dan letter. All you have to do is go to DobermanDan.com and sign up to get your free copy now.
Prepare yourself for the uncensored, nothing held back, no BS reality of how business and life really work. Doberman Dan is off the chain.
Ambush journalism. That's what I'm doing today.
All right. So is this something you made up? Did you read about it? Where did you get this?
It's like the old 60 Minutes thing. You know, when your day starts with 60 Minutes knocking on your door, that's a pretty good indicator it ain't going to be a good day.
To catch a predator.
So I'm doing ambush journalism on you.
No, I refuse.
That's why when you asked for show topics and I said this one is a surprise episode, because I wanted to sneak up on you. You nervous?
Yeah, well, will you just do me a favor? Oh, wait, I got to do it. I forget my role, but I need my voice manipulated so you can't tell it's me. Like, yes, sir.
That's right. The distortion thing. So
what do you got?
I'm turning the tables today.
All right.
I've been thinking about some things here lately, and I'm not the only one suffering from this issue. Us marketing people, man, a lot of marketing people, they spend years getting good at their thing, and they get good at making money, but they totally suck at keeping money. And, I've made no bones about it. Most of my marketing career, after I got good at making money, I totally sucked at keeping money. And I haven't really done a good job of keeping it until somewhat recently. So I've been thinking about this for a while. There's all kinds of opinions on what you should do with your money. And you got to be careful who you listen to, because there are a lot of people telling you what to do with your money who make commissions off of you doing what they say to do. So not necessarily non-biased info there, is it? And the stock market, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, a friend of mine's a decamillionaire. He's got a net worth of 20 million. And I asked him about the stock market, and his reply is, man, don't screw around with that. It's a rigged game. You know, his thing is just put it in index funds, and some years are going to be worse than others. But, you know, when it all evens out in the end. And then I got to thinking about real estate. And so I'm turning the tables, and I want to ask questions about real estate investing, in which you are an expert. You produce podcasts on it. You done do it and been doing it for a while. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, sure. I you know what? I have not spoken about real estate in a long time, and so I'm game.
All right. I thought this would be fun. Like, there's no preparation. This isn't staged. I really did spring this on you. You've had no time to prepare anything. So this is one of those wake you up at 3 a.m. Right.
All right.
So I love it. You know, when I have people who agree to an interview and they want to see the list of questions I'm going to ask, or I think, you know, if I can't wake you up at 3 a.m. and get you to start talking about your thing, then you're probably not somebody I want to interview. So this is one of those 3 a.m. interviews.
Okay. Challenge accepted, my friend.
And what will help is I have a true beginner's mind with this topic. Even though I have done some real estate investing, I consider myself a total rookie. So I'm just going to selfishly ask questions that I want to know about.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Excuse me. I mispronounced it. The Colombiana and I have gone back and forth on this topic, and she seems to think that it's smart buying an income property outright. Like, so let's say you have $100,000. Is the smart thing to do to buy an investment property with that $100,000, and now you got a paid off thing that will generate rents for the rest of your natural life? Or do real estate investors break that up into little down payments and buy a whole bunch of property leveraged?
Well, it really depends on your tolerance. Like when I first started out, I liked leverage a lot, and so I would break it out into as little as possible into the property, and then I lost my ass and all my property and every little bit I put down. So I've had some time to reevaluate, and nowadays I think that if you can buy it outright, it's good. And here's what some of my friends would say. Some of the people I would consider real investors, because I don't really consider myself like a real hardcore investor, but you got to look at the money you're putting in and you got to say to yourself, would I be making more money elsewhere with this? Right. And so if you're generating a rent and you've got like a 10% return on your investment, could you make more money elsewhere with that? If not, then you're doing the right thing. But if you could, then you have to reevaluate. And I'd say that knowing what I know about you, you would want to do as little as possible. So it might just be safer for you to buy the one property and just have it that way, so you don't have to manage more than 2 or 3 properties or 4 properties and get your guaranteed 10% or 12% or whatever it is that you end up getting.
That makes a lot of sense. I also see the sense in doing the leveraged thing too. If you could buy properties with a positive cash flow, but that's not an easy thing to do, is it?
You got to look at, see, the problem is that you're probably thinking about single family. And so for me, the leverage thing is worth it if you're getting into like, 20 units, 30 units, something like that, where you're not dependent on one resident to pay your mortgage. And if you lose them, then you're footing the whole bill. It's kind of offset through many residents. And see, I call them residents, not tenants, because I love my people because they pay me every month. But I would definitely consider the leverage more if I had more rents coming in versus just one renter, one rent, one property. I think that would work better, just having that thing paid off.
That makes a lot of sense. Something else that my wife is definitely smarter than me, but something else
Aren't they
she and
all?
I differed on. Yeah, well, of course. In general, women are smarter than men. The problem is that just nobody told the men that.
Right.
So we have a lot of issues because of that. I think we should be like the insect world, where the women just run things, and after they've used us to mate, they kill us and eat us. She and I have differed on, on a lot of things when it comes to real estate. But my thing was always like, okay, I'm going to give up this money to buy this property. And then I've lost that money. I've not got the use of it. And her thing is, well, temporarily, but that's not true. Barring some major crash again, like we had in 2008, if the money isn't lost, it's still there and you can get it out eventually. So, I guess, how do you balance the two with cash flow and tying up money with real estate? I know people who that's the only thing they do.
Yeah.
Real estate.
So you're talking about liquidity now. I need money right now.
Yes.
It's tied up in this property. What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so there's a couple different things. So I'll just go back to the people that I think are real estate investors that have lots of properties, all kinds of different single families, multifamilies and stuff. A lot of times what they do is they'll put an equity line on it. And if you need money right away, then you can get it out of the property, but you don't need to take that money out. And therefore you're not paying any interest and you still have some form of liquidity. And so that might ease your feelings on that. But I really, if you need the money, you shouldn't be investing it. If you think you're going to need the money, like that's not the money that you invest. It's the money that if you lost it all, you could start back up and it wouldn't kill you. Right. And so if you're not in that position, then it's like, maybe you should be rethinking what you're doing. Because if you need your money liquid, then you might need to look at something else other than real estate.
It's making more and more sense to me because, well, who knows what's going to happen with the stock market? Nobody can predict that, in spite of what some people claiming they can. But, the prices are really high right now on stocks, which is funny. At the time of us recording this, what's funny is people have such screwed up attitudes about the stock market. Everybody starts buying when the prices are high, but then when there's a crash and prices are low, people take their money out and stop buying. Whereas it should be the exact opposite. You buy when prices are low. But anyway, the stock market is something that I just don't understand. And the more I look into real estate, the more it seems to make sense. With the stock market, yeah, there's a really good chance you're going to lose your principal. With real estate, I guess if you buy it right, not so much, right?
Yeah, well, I do also, I have investments in the stock market as well, because I don't like to have all my eggs in one basket. Plus, the money I keep there is more liquid than real estate money that's tied up. And if I can do 8 or 10%, I'm doing okay. If I can do, like I did last year, 14%, I'm feeling pretty damn good. But the thing about it is, if I had 100 grand right now that I wanted, that I didn't need, and I wanted to go ahead and invest it, I'd be looking at something like a fourplex. How could I get a fourplex, right? Because then a fourplex, even if you're leveraging a fourplex, you got 4 rents coming in, which the way I look at a fourplex is, if you're 50% occupied, that should pay your principal, insurance, taxes, interest, everything, PITI, right? And so the other 2 are gravy, and you start using those other 2 to pay down the mortgage, and then you're getting your money back out, and then you can move that into another property. So that's more the way I would look at it, multifamily wise. Or even a duplex, you could do it as long as half of it paid for everything.
That makes a lot of sense. Plus, like you said, less risk. If one unit remains empty for a while, you're now not without zero income coming in from that property.
And you're paying out of pocket. Now you're losing, right?
So what are your thoughts on, I know this is technically not an investment. What are your thoughts on paying off your primary residency as opposed to having a mortgage?
It isn't an investment, although most people think about it as that. But I find that paying off your primary mortgage makes life a whole lot easier, right? Because
it's interesting to hear you say that. I mean, that's my thought. I know it's not an investment and that it doesn't produce income, but the peace of mind from knowing that your biggest living expense is taken care of every month, I think way more than makes up for it.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, if you have that ability to make more money, that's like my solution to everything is, oh shit, we got taxes, got to make more money. Oh, we got this coming up, we got to make more money. Oh, Cupcake's working with me now, got to make more money. So my solution is make more money. And I think you have that same mindset as an entrepreneur. You just solve more problems and make more money. So with having your house paid off, if you're smart about it, you can also start sacking away money. And within a couple years, have enough to put down on a property and do the leverage thing and buy a duplex or a fourplex and do that same strategy. But personally, I like having a house paid off. I've had it both ways, where I've had a fat mortgage that took a lot out of me, and where I've had a paid off mortgage, and paid off is a whole lot better, in my opinion.
The peace of mind alone would be worth it. Like I guess if you want to evaluate, well, if I take this money and put it into something else, I could make a return. Yeah. But what is your peace of mind worth, knowing that you've got a property paid for in full?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to beat that. And you got to look at the big picture, too. Because here's what sucks about having a property paid off. That even though you have your home paid off, that doesn't mean that your property taxes are paid off. That doesn't mean your home insurance is paid off. That it still costs money, right? It still costs money to have a house, and you're still going to be putting away money to take care of your house. But you don't have that giant mortgage payment, and you're not being robbed by the people charging you interest.
The interest, yeah. You're not paying 3 times more than the value of the house over the period of the loan.
Yeah, like what we're doing now is we have houses that are cash flow positive, where we refinance them properly and have those low interest mortgages, and they're still collecting the same rates. And we take our overage on the other properties and pay down one property. So we're focusing on one property. When that one's paid off, that's going to be completely cash flow other than the taxes, insurance, HOA. Then we'll take all that overage and pay off the next one, and we'll keep doing it that way.
You so smart. Let's say, for example, 100 grand just dropped in your lap. You got 100 grand windfall. There's nothing else you need to use that money for, but you want to invest it in something. What are you going to do with that 100 grand?
I'd likely split it up, and I'm talking about not leveraging, but I would leverage. So I would probably, the way that I would do it, I would keep 50% of that and put it into the stock market, into my mutual funds and stuff that I have going on there, so that I know it's liquid. And the other 50 grand I would leverage into at least a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, depending on what I could make work.
Okay. So don't forget, the theme today is ambush journalism. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to stick with the original thing I started asking you about. You're in strategic coach.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are the things you're learning No, I take that back. What are some of your takeaways from Strategic Coach that have made an immediate turnaround or impact in your life, business, and or income?
The most obvious one is starting to charge you fuckers.
Yeah. Yeah, that part sucks for me.
I mean, come on. Like and it's something I don't talk about too openly, but since you and I are buddies and you're a stand-up guy, I respect you a lot and I appreciate working with you. But that was one of the things is like I started this whole podcast factory thing just as I wanted to hang out with you. Like I wanted to hang out with you. I wanted to hang out with Ben, and that's all it was. And then, after a year or two of paying the bills, it's like, holy shit, man, I got to do something different. And the stand-up guys say, yeah, of course I should pay you. Yeah, I'm in. And the people that aren't so stand-up are not going to be at the factory anymore. So that's one thing. The other thing was raising my prices. Another thing is just realizing my unique ability. Like I'm really getting focused on my unique ability, and it's this right here. You and I talking is one of my unique abilities, and the other one's my writing, like my daily emails, my newsletter. I got to start working on the book because I can crank out words like nobody's business as long as I have the outline and the time. So those two big things have made a huge impact to the point, Dan, where, and we talked about this off the air, but I really didn't think Cupcake was going to be able to stay with me after she had her 3 months off when we brought home our son. And by making those small changes as my business bro, Cupcake and I are both working on this business together. We both have the same goals. And we're both like, I walked out after we recorded that last episode. I went and hugged and kissed my son, gave my wife a kiss, got some water and came back. Like that is fucking amazing. And I didn't know I could do that. And it was just only minor changes. I haven't even made the big changes yet.
In my defense, I'll say this. When we started this working arrangement, the original plan was we were going to monetize it as a joint venture partnership. And then just for a lot of reasons, that didn't work out. But then we continued.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot. It was starting an entirely new business.
Right.
One which neither of us had the time or the energy to take on at that point. So
no.
But we just kept doing it, until I finally said, dude, I can't. I got to pay you for this.
No, bro. But you, the whole time were telling me that. Like you were telling me that early on, like, come on. I'm like, no, I got to make this shit work. And I had this single-minded focus of making it work. And okay, hey, I was wrong. I have to do something slightly different here. And so that's why I call you a stand-up guy, because from the beginning, you're like, come on, let me pay you. And I'm like, no, I'm going to make this shit work. But I learned with Ben Settle, that doesn't fucking work. You need a team. You need extra people. It becomes a whole other business you have to manage. And I'm just not interested in another business at this point.
Well, you never would have gotten this point. You never would have gotten to that realization if you hadn't gone through the doing it wrong the first way.
Sure. That's mastery, right? That perseverance of shit, this got to get better. But the part that I will never take back is, like, you and I wouldn't have this relationship if we didn't spend all that time together. Ben and I wouldn't have that relationship. The people I work with wouldn't have this relationship if we didn't have that time together that made it an easy decision for you. So iron sharpening iron, you guys are brilliant. I get to be around you. So that to me was the first payment. Like really, I was getting paid just by being mentored by you.
So it all worked out in the end.
Sure, of course.
I got one last question about Strategic Coach and then we got to run. So shortly after getting involved with a Strategic Coach, you sent me an email about your updated schedule, and you totally scheduled, correct me on the details. What was it? Was it 1 day a week is just thought time, or how's that work?
Yeah. So the first thing that we tackle in Strategic Coach is the entrepreneurial time system. And I'll put a little TM next to that because Dan Sullivan names all his stuff and trademarks it. And he's teaching us to do that as well. But it was basically this thing where you have those guys out there like Gary Vee who are like, grind your face off, work it to the knuckle, all that shit. And look, maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It certainly didn't work for me. And what Dan Sullivan explains is that you have this cycle and you have your creativity is very high and then it comes down, right? And it goes down. And so you're working in the creativity zone. And the more you work in that, the less creative you are. And then you fall to the bottom of that, which is the reactionary zone where most people spend their time is just reacting, putting out fires, chasing squirrels. And so the way to cut that cycle to keep your creativity up is to have free days. And that doesn't jive with the work your bones off and all that shit. Free days, what?
Yeah, the world's going to end if I take time off.
And so my schedule for the last year has been Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays are free days. And then I have one buffer day. I used to have 2 buffer days and 2 focus days, but now I have 3 focus days and 1 buffer day. And buffer days answering questions, answering emails, just so leading the team and stuff like that. And then focus days is when I'm just doing my unique ability where I'm writing, I'm talking, I'm creating the content, I'm doing the stuff that only I can do. And look, I don't know exactly what my unique ability is. I'm figuring it out. But clearly, look, you couldn't even stump me today. I got you, baby, so I can talk.
Absolutely. Well, all good stuff, man. We got to run, but what did you think of this episode?
Oh, leave it in the review. Leave it in the reviews in iTunes. Tell us what you think of ambush journalism. So that's a wrap for another Off the Chain show. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Dan.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to create rivers of revenue from your existing customers, then the next thing you need to do is go to DobermanDan.com. He's giving away a free copy of his $98 per month Doberman Dan letter just for listening to the show. Go to DobermanDan.com now and sign up for your free issue.
This is the podcastfactory.com.